I'm Brenda Mahoney, joined by Jane Morgan, part of Build Arlington's Future, proponent of the debt exclusion, Proposition 2.5 debt exclusion override questions. And we're here specifically to talk about question 1. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I'm in favor of question number 1. First of all, because I'm a parent with young children, I'm choosing to live in Arlington. I'm choosing to send my children to school here, and we're in a situation right now in Arlington where we have more students than we have classrooms, and so the town and the school department leadership has come together to really evaluate what our options are. And we've come to a place where we have a comprehensive plan for the middle school, for our middle school and our elementary schools to put in front of the voters, to ask them, as you said, to do 2 things. We need to remodel the Gibbs so that we can bring it back online as a second middle school serving 6th graders, as well as we need to add classroom expansion at the Thompson School, which is our East Arlington Middle School that has been first hard hit by this enrollment surge that we've seen over the last 5 years.
Let's talk about the enrollment surge and not going too much into what had happened specifically with Thompson in the past, but people still are asking, well, this school was just built in 2013, but now that there is a new data and a more of a forecast approach as opposed to going by birth numbers. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yes, so back in 2011 and then through 2013, when Thompson was under construction, the state and the town came together to agree to this number of 380, right? Which has it determines the number of classrooms, the size of the course spaces, et cetera. And Thompson School now, as of today, is north of 430 students. So since it opened, it has brought on many, many additional students. And what we need to do at Thompson is give them additional classroom capacity so that we don't see blending of grades. So offering fewer sections of a grade because there isn't an available classroom to offer them.
Okay. And that is essentially what is at stake, I suppose, if this were not passed by voters. Either the town come up with the money somehow itself in cutting capital expenditures, or that the classrooms balloon. So what is roughly the classroom size at this point?
So are we talking about Thompson or just at Thompson?
Specifically.
So Thompson, right now, they have 2 classes in the 5th grade of 29 and 30 students. And next fall, the town is going to pay for 2 modular classrooms, which will help. But in order to really solve the problem in the most cost-effective way, modular classrooms are not cost-effective. They're not bondable. They're not capital expenses. They've actually become very expensive over the last few years. So in order to really solve the problem for those students at Thompson, we need to build additional permanent capacity.
And so now getting it back into Gibbs as well. There has been a school enrollment task force. There's been the full school committee looking at this, even building facilities within the town, buildings committee as well, looking at all the different various options. So let's just lay that out, that part has been kind of looked at and vetted. Can you tell me, though, why the town is confident that we're making the right decision here as far as adding on to Thompson and utilizing Gibbs as opposed to Ottoson? That is not what the question is right now, but we just want to reassert how that conclusion kind of came about.
Yes, so I think the reason that that the town and the school department and the school committee have made the decision to renovate the Gibbs and to bring it back online as a middle school, because it's important to remember Gibbs used to be a middle school. It was closed. It was brought offline when enrollment dropped in the early 90s, and now enrollment has come back up again, and it was sensibly held in reserve to be brought back online at a time when we might need it, and that time has arrived. Why aren't we going to add on to the Ottoson? There are 2 reasons why we aren't going to, why the town and why the sort of leadership has decided that it is not in the best interest of our students. The first is that Ottoson is already a very large middle school. It's one of the largest middle schools in the Commonwealth now. Were we to put on additional classroom capacity at the Ottoson, we would we would become very quickly the largest middle school in the state of Massachusetts. This is not a distinction that the town wants. It is not something that is in the best interest of our students. It doesn't put them in the position to have the best educational outcomes. So why not Ottoson? Because we don't want to have the largest middle school in the state. And the second reason is that regardless of whether you put an addition onto Ottoson or you renovate the Gibbs School, it's a significant capital expense for the town and for the taxpayers to take on. By renovating the Gibbs, we have a saleable, flexible asset that we can use down the road should enrollment change, should enrollment at the elementary level grow even more, should enrollment decline. We have an asset that is in East Arlington, which is a place where we've seen enormous population growth. It would be renovated, it would be to code, and we could use it for something else. We could bring it online as a different kind of school in a different combination. It just provides maximum flexibility. If we put a large addition onto the Ottoson, we can't use it for anything else other than middle school space, or it becomes much more difficult to do so.
And we're talking, it's roughly been projected $25–30 million to renovate the Gibbs?
South of $25 million.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it possible then that we could be renovating, could be paying as taxpayers the 20 to 30 year bond on this beyond what the school would actually be utilized as a school?
It's possible, but I think it's unlikely. We can project, if you look at your kindergartners, right, your incoming kindergarten cohorts are enormous coming in. And those kids are going to be in the school system, in middle school through 8th grade, right? So they've got 9 years ahead of them. There are large cohorts that continue to be born. So realistically, could we be in a position where we are paying the bonds and Gibbs is no longer, it has been resurplused again? Potentially. I mean, you can, predictions are only so good, but I think it's safe to assume that we will have school students who need to use that space for many years to come.
And as you pointed out, resurplus, then that means putting it back on the market for lease, and it has been utilized, and obviously with long-term tenants in the past.
Yes.
Okay. Is there more to come beyond these schools in need? Because the McKibben report, and that's the forecast that we're now kind of relying on, that shows that a lot of in-migration as opposed to out-migration. And if they are out-migrating, say, elementary or middle schoolers, they're coming in with elementary and middle schoolers, no longer coming in dual income, no children as much because of the market and the housing prices here in Arlington. So are we done yet? I mean, it's shown, I believe, the McKibben report that all of the elementary schools are either at or near capacity. So even though we're talking specifically about question one in Gibbs and Thompson, I just want to give people a sense of what the overall enrollment is and where we are and if there could be.
I think it's very likely that we will need to do something at the Hardy. I think there's a lot of uncertainty in that part of town right now, but I think it's likely that something will need to be done for the Hardy at some point in the next few years. They're bringing in a kindergarten class north of 85 students. It's a lot of kids, so it's fair to assume potentially that we would need to do something for them.
Has redistricting been looked at?
So I'm not a member of the school committee, so I can't speak to where they are at in terms of redistricting. But it seems I suspect that everything is being considered, and
as I stated, there has been the school enrollment task force specifically that then speaks with the school committee and advises them on what the school enrollment task force has found, and taking into all of this different data. Are you confident that we're looking at all of the data, the right data, and making sound decisions based on that?
I think so. You know, Arlington is a town that really supports the neighborhood school model. This is something that has been very important to Arlington since long before I came here. It's part of what I love about Arlington Elementary Schools. The School Enrollment Task Force has been very supportive of the, neighborhood schools is a big part of what Arlington is about. So I think, keeping that in mind, they have really they have looked at all of the options for the middle school, and being fiscally responsible is a huge part of this process, and that was a huge consideration of the School Enrollment Task Force as they looked through and sifted through every option, from building a floating school on Spy Pond to repurposing the Gibbs, and a lot of these things were taken out of consideration for various compelling and important reasons. So yes, I don't see any scenario where we're not going to need to use the Gibbs School. I don't see any scenario where we're not going to need an addition on the Thompson School. The Thompson School is graduating 59 fifth graders this year, and they're bringing in, over 85 kindergartners to take their place. When that happens, and it's happened it's happened for a couple of years at Thompson, when that happens year after year, you're going to run out of space pretty quickly. So we're not talking about building a pool or an atrium or anything like that. We're talking about building classrooms, and they're clearly needed.
When you have a moment to talk to neighbors or maybe people over in Thompson or wherever else, what is it that you say as to why to vote yes for adding on to the Gibbs and reopening the Gibbs and remodeling it and adding on to Thompson?
I talk about my own kids because I'm a parent. I have kids who are in the schools. I have kids who will be in the schools for many years. I talk about how that the Ottoson teachers are very adamant. They don't want Ottoson to be any bigger than it is today. That it's not in the best interest of our students to have a really big school. I talk about, for me personally, my daughter going to the Gibbs School is not going to be ultimately super convenient, right? She's not going to be bused. We live far enough away that we're going to have to get her there, and yet she won't be bused there. But for me, it makes me feel so much more comfortable, the idea of sending her to a 500-seat school than to a 1,500-seat school or 1,400-seat school. So, why do I talk? What do I tell people about the Thompson? It's not my kids. My kids are at Stratton. My kids will never, likely see the inside of a Thompson classroom, but these are all our kids, and this is what we need to do. These are students who do not have classroom space if we don't choose to do this. Or we could continue to put up temporary modulars at great expense, and there's evidence to show that these students are coming. They're coming to Thompson, and they need classrooms.
Because there are some people that say, well, I'm okay with that alternative, bigger class size and modulars, and I don't really trust the town data and so forth because of, past preconceptions or actual things that have
Sure.
happened. And what do you think that has a chance? At the ballot?
I think that Arlington is a generous town. I think that voters support public schools. I think they support reasonable class sizes. We're not talking about class sizes of 15 here. We're saying, 30 kids in a class is too many right now for us. It's too many for Arlington. It's too many for what we think is important. I don't. I think that people will support this because it's what has to happen, and the students, they're coming, and we need a place to put them.
Thank you very much. Jane Morgan, Build Arlington's Future. I'm Brenda Mahoney. Vote June 14th. Have your opinion heard at the ballot.